Hi, I'm Mike Martin from Casio, and I wanted to welcome Sonic State to NAMM 2012 and the debut of the XW-P1 performance synthesizer from Casio. As I'm sure you know, this is Casio's first entry back into the synthesizer market in over 20 years, and as I believe you'll hear in a minute, we're back with a vengeance.
So what made you want to come back to synth then? What's the kind of deal?
Well, I think we found opportunity with some technology that we had that maybe we repurposed in a different way. And honestly, we want to find a way with some unique features to grow the keyboard market and create new interest in playing keyboards. So the XW-P1's got several different sound engines. It's designed for the performing musician. So you've got your pianos, your electric pianos, your gig-ready sounds, but it has some specialized engines for certain sounds as well. The first of which I'm going to show you is the solo synth, the lead synth. So it's a 6 oscillator design. With lots of real-time control. And you can also not only use the knobs and the knobs, but you can grab the sliders over here to mix your 6 oscillators on the fly. So for example, you can bring in individual waveforms. Even a noise generator. And filter control. Sound-wise, the solo synth has a little bit of everything from your Lucky Man leads to basses.
Is it a mono voice, this part?
Everything in this part is monophonic in the lead synth. So 6 oscillators dedicated for this monophonic voice.
What sort of editability is there to that sort of synth?
Oh my goodness. It's quite deep. When you get into the editing, there's hundreds of waveforms to choose from, filter types of course. Each oscillator has many waveforms to choose from. You can do some things that I don't think many people would expect, like reverse key scaling for pitch, so you can have sounds or oscillators going in different directions. Incredible depth.
What about envelopes, that sort of thing?
Envelopes. So for each section, you've got filter envelopes, you have amplitude envelopes, pitch envelopes for each oscillator. Plus, when you get to the total filter, where everything's merged, there's another envelope for that section as well.
Okay. So what about the other section?
Okay. So the other section is called a hex layer, and it's kind of a dedicated monophonic, polyphonic version where we have 6 components. So simply put, we could take one similar sound and stack it and get something that's big and fat. Again, real-time control. Detune those sounds to just envelopes and turn that into a pad. Use the filter. So we do these immense pads, or these evolving sounds. And like the solo synth, we can blend sounds on the fly. So some immense pads.
So you're kind of almost, because everybody gets hung up on having drawbars on a synth,
Sure.
they're kind of like, but that makes it not, but actually you're using them quite
interactively. Exactly. And the position of them is perfect. Although there is a hold switch on the front panel, so I can use the hold switch, play a chord, manipulate the sliders in real time. When I play another chord, it lets go of the first one. So it's a real nice way to work, especially when you're going for real-time control. The hex layer, just so everybody's clear, the XW-P1 can do more than just synth sounds. It has all your bread and butter stuff, including great pianos. So we're using that as, again, an acoustic sound mixed with the synth. You can even do orchestral combinations where you have velocity switch sounds. So we have timpani and brass that are coming in when I play the keyboard a different way. So again, for the performing musician, lots of different capabilities within a single sound. We still have a performance mode that allows you to do 4 sounds at once. You choose one solo synth or a hex layer or a drawbar organ, but your 3 other zones can be anything else, either inside or outside of the machine.
So you can control it by external MIDI.
Exactly, exactly. Speaking of which, there's both MIDI and USB MIDI on the back. It's SD card slot. The USB MIDI is class compliant, so it works nicely. Of course, there's a convenience place right here where you could put a device such as an iPad.
That's not a speaker then?
That's not a speaker. There's no speakers on this product. If you're using this with an iPad, there is 3 audio ins on the back, one of which is an 1/8" stereo in that essentially passes through the back, and it is not affected by the synth. But the mic and line inputs you can process through the solo synth engine as your 6th oscillator. So really flexible design. Last part I want to talk about real quick is the step sequencer. Because I've never released anything quite like this built into a keyboard. The switches over here on the left-hand side correspond to your 16-step grid. Now I can just quickly drag my finger across and get a simple beat going, select a different part, add a snare. Different parts can have different lengths. You see my hi-hat's not going through all 16 parts, it's going through 8. Each part can also have a different note value, so if I wanted my hi-hats to be triplets or have a different feel, I can do that. You can use the buttons. You can also use the sliders here to manipulate your step sequence in real time. Different position of the slider will give you a different note, such as an open hi-hat. And the step sequencer you can use not only for drums, but synth parts, bass parts, and transpose those things on the fly. So when we start combining a lot of these things at once, playing the keyboard, using the step sequencer, you get some pretty amazing things. So here we go. I'm going to play something. Here's a nice arpeggiated sound that I'm manipulating in real time. I'm going to add the step sequencer. And I can switch between sequences and transpose it on the fly. From the switch. Take it any direction you might want to go. You can switch between 8 different patterns. You can transpose sequences on the fly.
So you're using some of your kind of arranger technology to kind of bring
yes, exactly. So
drum sounds, there are some in there, clearly.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What have you got?
The number of kits, it's off the top of my head going to be right around 20. You can edit the kits. In fact, you can edit every sound on the machine, but you can even remap the kits, put different sounds on different keys, and build your own. But for each of these parts in the step sequencer, although, for example, part 1 says drum, there aren't really any rules in the step sequencer. You can make each of the tracks pitch instruments, you can make them transpose or not. Incredible flexibility.
And what about effects? Because I'm hearing some there. So.
Yeah, absolutely. There are 2 global effects. It's a reverb and chorus that are shared between all the different parts. Different effect send levels for each part that's going. Plus there's an insert effect. So your insert effect, of course, could be used on your solo synth or whatever your specialty sound might be, but other parts can share that insert. So if you want your delay line on a couple different parts at the same time, you can accomplish that.
And what about polyphony? Because I mean, obviously, there's going to be a limit.
Yeah, it's 64 voice. So pretty flexible. Even when you're using some of the hex sounds, you've got plenty of breathing room there. And we think a lot of people might be using hex sounds, not necessarily where they have all 6 things stacked at once, but they might have sounds split across the keyboard or velocity switched in some way.
So I saw an SD card there. What's that for storing? Is that?
So you've got. It's a great file system. You have the ability to store each type of sound individually. So if you create some solo synth leads, hex layers, step sequences, or performances where all these things are combined. You can store those to the SD card. You can also use the SD card to stream audio. So if you've got a CAN track that you want to play over the top, you can put your WAV files on there, trigger them, and then play over the top. So MIDI files as well.
Okay. And what's this little fella down here?
Okay, the XW-G1. This one's coming a little bit later. It's essentially the cousin of the XW-P1 in that it shares some of the same blood. It shares the solo synthesizer that we heard in the XW-P1, but you don't get drawbar organs or the hex layer. That functionality or that horsepower is traded off for sampling. And it's a sample looper. So many people have seen sample looping pedals. This is sample looping in a keyboard. So it's a really unique way to work. Of course, it has the step sequencer, so you can get beats going and then overdub guitar parts or whatever you might have plugged into the back and create your loops on the fly.
It's got more parameter access on this matrix
yes,
as well.
so this section, let's see, one advantage of the G1 in regards to the solo synth is you have full control to manipulate all the parameters of the solo synth in real time.
So this might actually be a bit more synthy than the P1.
It's a trade-off a little bit. You are going to get more of your acoustic sounds on the P1 compared to the G1, but you get the hex sound. So it is a trade-off depending on your use. So we think due to the nature of the sample looper, people doing remixing and things like that, that might be a different customer than the P1.
So I'm sure you've been asked this question end after end. There's no phase distortion engine in this, right?
There's not phase distortion in it. However, there is some of Casio's history in the product. In fact, there's dozens of waveforms from the original CZ series in here that you can access from not only the solo synth, but the hex layer engine independently.
And I guess the other thing is how much and when?
The XW-P1 will be shipping in March, mid to late March. The XW-G1 will be in April. In the U.S., retail prices are $6.99 and $7.99. You should be able to purchase those for $4.99 and $5.99 respectively.
So are we going to see some more synth action from Casio now? Is this just the beginning?
This is just the beginning. That's been, our big message here at NAMM is that we are back. We're dedicated to creating, pro products for the music industry, and these two products are just the beginning.